Welcome back to all Web Salute listeners and readers. It is a pleasure to have Dr. Stefano Chiaramonte, nephrologist and expert in cardiovascular risks, here with us today. We sincerely appreciate your presence, Doctor. Today we're talking about salt. So, Doctor, is it really a harmful substance for our body? Yes or no?
Let's say, first of all, salt is one of the most important substances on Earth. From a historical point of view, since they discovered the property of salt as a preservative even 6,000 years ago. And then from the general point of view, when salt was considered as gold, to the point that it constituted one of the most important commodities of exchange. The people residing near the coast enjoyed significant advantages compared to those who lived further inland. The primary purpose of constructing the main roads was to transport large quantities of salt. Venice had a trade agreement with the Asiago Plateau, wherein they exchanged timber for salt. Salt, also known as sodium, is a vital substance that plays a crucial role in our bodies. It is a key component that contributes significantly to both the development and management of conditions such as high blood pressure and fluid balance regulation. Therefore, understanding the importance of sodium is imperative for maintaining our overall health and well-being. So we can't define it harmful. It is an important substance that should be treated with a lot of respect.
Previously, you brought up sodium, and there's frequently uncertainty regarding salt and sodium. Could you perhaps elaborate on the disparity? It's fascinating to observe the connection between the two.
True, it is true. People often talk indifferently about salt or sodium, but are they actually the same thing? Definitely not. They have two different things. Then, sodium, a molecule that is positively charged, is an integral part of our body's composition. When we talk about salt instead, we're referring to a salt, which is a combination of a positive molecule with a negative one. In this particular instance, when the subject of salt is addressed, we are specifically referring to table salt, which is the type of salt that is most frequently utilized by individuals. The problem arises when we define numbers, doses, because we have to understand what we are talking about. So when we talk about 1 gram of salt, that is sodium chloride, we are talking about 393 milligrams of sodium, which is something else. A single gram of sodium is equivalent to 2.5 grams of salt. Alternatively, by another measurement system, 1 gram of sodium corresponds to 23 milliequivalents of sodium. And that can be confusing. So, to avoid confusion, it is necessary to clearly define what we are talking about and how much is the amount of what we are talking about.
Doctor, first of all, I want to address this popular belief that sodium determines the onset of hypertension. Is that true or not?
It is widely believed that sodium is one of the main causes of hypertension based on extensive epidemiological information. Reports suggest that sodium is likely to contribute significantly to the development of high blood pressure. Certain individuals, such as Eskimos, who consume a diet devoid of salt, remain unaware of hypertension. Conversely, in cases where salt intake is excessive due to dietary and cultural practices, there is a noticeably higher percentage of individuals affected by hypertension. However, it is well known that consuming excessive amounts of salt is strongly linked to the development of hypertension and vice versa. Hence, reducing salt intake in the diet becomes the primary step towards effectively addressing high blood pressure. There is an abundance of evidence from various studies, such as epidemiological and observational studies, that clearly demonstrate the significant role salt plays in relation to hypertension. It is considered a pivotal element in contributing to this condition.
So, in this regard, how does the amount of sodium affect the development of hypertension, and what is the underlying mechanism involved in this process?
There are two basic mechanisms. One important factor is that sodium plays a crucial role in muscle contraction, particularly in the muscle cells of our blood vessels. When sodium enters these cells, it enhances their sensitivity to other hormones and mediators, leading to increased susceptibility to hypertension. Sodium, rather than simply salt itself, directly influences the contractility of muscle fiber cells. And then salt, sodium, pardon me, it's easy to get confused. Sodium influences the circulating blood volume, and so an excess of sodium leads at an increase in circulating volume, which at that point becomes circulating mass. This increase in mass, in the end, leads at an increase of blood pressure, which is precisely hypertension. But then sodium is involved in many other processes, because sodium is actively exchanged at the kidney level. The kidney maintains a balance. In this manner, sodium attracts other molecules, leading to an increase in urinary calcium. This correlation is among the causative factors of calcinosis. Sodium's impact on other molecules prompts an increase in calcium content, which contributes to calcinosis. Furthermore, the presence of sodium can contribute to the progression of osteoporosis by affecting bone metabolism. A diet that contains a high amount of sodium increases the likelihood of developing osteoporosis. So it can be said that sodium plays an influential role in numerous areas of our body and acts as a regulator for various processes.
And therefore, doctor, it tends to be somewhat subjective and natural to consider reducing sodium intake in our daily diet. Is that a valid practice? In other words, does it have the potential to be effective?
It is very correct. The problem is being able to put it into practice effectively. In our culinary traditions, it is common for an individual to consume approximately 3,000 to 4,000 milligrams of sodium each day. It is recommended by international guidelines to consume approximately 2,000 milligrams, which is equivalent to 2 grams, of salt per day. However, achieving this level of consumption can be particularly challenging. Why is that? Due to the high sodium content found in meals consumed outside the home, individuals who dine at fast food chains, restaurants, and other eateries are at risk of consuming excessive amounts of salt. It is widely known that salt enhances the taste of food, which is why it is generously added to make it more flavorful and palatable. This practice contributes to the prevalence of high-salt diets among individuals who choose to eat out. Certainly, it is true that people who dine at home have greater control over their diet. Opting for a vegetarian diet ensures a lower intake of salt. However, when preparing salads or cooking vegetables, we may feel the need to add salt, as the natural salt content in vegetables is generally low. When individuals consume a diet rich in meat, they also intake a significant amount of sodium due to the sodium content in meat. Therefore, it becomes challenging to implement a policy to regulate sodium and salt intake if we do not take personal responsibility for our own consumption.
Clear.
In order to be cautious, we make an effort to control the quantities we incorporate into our meals. But, for example, we have to get into the golden paradox of dry pasta. The golden recipe of dry pasta is 1, 10, 100, where 1 is 1 liter of water, 10 is the grams of salt you add to the water, and 100 is the grams of pasta.
Indeed.
In order to maintain adherence to international guidelines, the proportions need to be adjusted. We should use the ratio of 1 liter of water to 7 grams of salt and 100 grams of pasta. By doing so, we would significantly reduce the recommended amount of salt intake. So, the ultimate challenge lies in determining how to measure this issue. In diet instructions, it is common to see recommendations such as add 3 grams of salt, 4 grams of salt, or 5 grams of salt. Although these are generic indications, they can also be ambiguous and misleading. Why do we keep adding salt to our food? Because we don't realize how much salt is already in it. In order to accurately evaluate a person's sodium balance, the most effective method is to collect their 24-hour urine sample. This is the only procedure to obtain an accurate assessment.
Okay.
I understand that the method is highly complicated as it involves collecting urine over a 24-hour period. However, our kidneys play a crucial role in maintaining a balanced salt level and the equilibrium of various other substances in our body. The amount of sodium excreted in our urine each day is equivalent to our daily intake of sodium. So if I observe 100 milliequivalents of sodium in the urine, it indicates a perfect balance between intake and excretion. If, on the other hand, the amount of sodium in the urine is greater, it means that my kidney is spitting out that extra amount of sodium in the urine. That is the golden indicator for understand what our sodium balance is. Unfortunately, this is a figure that is little used, very little, partly because it is not known and partly because it is difficult to practice, honestly. However, when we encounter a situation where we need to assess the problem of salt balance with significant clinical presentations, the most accurate and efficient method is to address the issue directly. This approach ensures both effectiveness and precision in resolving our problem.
Well, thank you, doctor. I'll end with a very quick curiosity. So, is it true that salt is dangerous for the liver or not?
The liver remains unblameable and it remains unaffected by the presence of salt.